Wednesday, April 2nd. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
Yokai and Jisoo.
No, it's no good. Let's do this.
I was so wrecked at work today, I almost fell asleep like 3 times.
I was pretty wrecked. I mean, I got into work and I went, and I did a bunch of stuff, and then I basically played Flash games the rest of the day, and I died.
Well, actually, I came into work and I asked one of the developers, like, hey, can I turn the log level down on this one thing? And he was like, why? And I was like, because it's generating like 4 gigabytes of logs a day, and I'm sick of dealing with it. And they're like, well, is there still a problem with that thing? And I'm like, yeah, kind of. He's like, yeah, we should leave it on. And then I was like, yeah, well, you know what? That's probably for the best, because I'm sure it'll crash soon enough. And
Crashed.
And then I'll be able to make use of those logs. And he was like, don't be snarky. And I sit down at my desk, and sure enough, it was crashed.
Lol.
So I sent him over a core dump and some logs.
Oh, Cordum, fantastic. Yeah, but there was a little storm here last night, which is fine. I like me a storm, a little thunder, lightning action.
Oh, that was a great storm, too.
It was okay. The thunder and lightning was not numerous or loud enough.
But the thing is,
But the rain and the wind were pretty fierce.
The thing is, though, it was super warm in the morning. So Emily and I are looking out the window like, wow, thunderstorm. Let's totally run outside. Whee! And we run outside, and it had been 70 degrees when the storm rolled in. As the storm rolled in, with it came 40 degrees.
Yep.
And
But anyway,
it was cold.
As storms do, that makes the power go on and off a little bit. You know, there's never like going to be a big blackout, you know, especially at night when everyone's sleeping. It doesn't matter so much. Unless you have electric heat. But, you know, it's just okay, whatever. But we were pissed off a long time ago because that would turn our computers off.
Yeah, because our house is kind of crappy wiring because we're on the edge of Beacon. So across the street from us, a lot of those people start getting their power from other sources. Like, you can see the different sets of wires.
Yeah, like when there's a blackout or when a power goes out, you can look outside and you can see where there's light and where there's darkness is different sets of power lines, and you can tell where the breakage happened.
But we're kind of on the end of our run, so we often have little blips. Also, our house is not the most well-wired house.
Yeah, our house, the power will be like on, off, and that's not good for computers and other electronic equipment. So we bought the cheapest UPSs imaginable.
And we got several of them.
We have 4 of them, I think. And the thing is, they're fine. They help out a lot. When the power goes blip, all the computers are like, what happened? Nothing. That's right. UPSs.
There's one problem, however, with the cheap UPS. So I'm asleep and Scott's asleep, and the power goes out. Whatever. Now, of course, even without this, I would have been woken up by the thunderous silence.
Yeah.
But you know, when I've talked about this before. We talk about this a lot. But if you're tired and an unexpected noise happens, your brain, like your body, is flailing around trying to deal with it, but your brain's not awake enough yet to analyze the situation and be like, "That's not your alarm clock, Rim. That's your cell phone. It's ringing. You can't stop it by turning off the alarm clock, no matter how hard you try."
And now you're going to go back to sleep when the cell phone stops ringing, but you're not going to wake up in the morning because you turned your cell phone off.
and the alarm clock.
And the alarm clock.
So it's even worse when it's a really unexpected sound. So we're asleep, and suddenly,
all the UPSs had run out of battery because they're the cheap shit UPSs and they make loud noises.
well, they make noises saying, "Hey, the power's out, just so you know. Hey, the power's out, just so you know." So, and they actually last quite a while because we have one computer plugged into each, and then the last one's just like the
So I'd
network
like
equipment.
crawl out of bed and stumble around, turning off all these stupid UPSs and plugging things in and switching to my cell phone alarm and all this bullshit.
I was laying in bed. I'm like, "Emily, your cell phone's going off. Emily, your cell phone's going. Oh, God damn it! I
Yeah.
know. Oh, I know what's going on. God damn
It
it!"
was pretty bad.
I like crawl under my desk. I'm like trying to log into my computer to turn it off, but the monitor wasn't on. But I was too tired to realize that.
Yeah.
So in the end, I just fucking turned off the UPS, unplugged everything, and then went back to sleep.
Yeah, I did similar things in my room.
But then I lay back in bed. I'm like,
It sucked because I looked at the clock before I turned it off because, you know, the clock was running on the battery power and it's at 11:58 and I'd gone to bed at like 10 something and I was just like, fuck, I felt like I was asleep for hours, but really I was not asleep very long at all.
The worst thing is I get back in bed and then I hear faintly, "Oh yeah, UPS on the networking equipment."
Yeah, and then when I woke up this morning, I had to turn that back on because I couldn't get on the internet.
Yeah, well, the thing is, whenever that UPS is going off, it's pretty much equidistant from me and Scott. So but I'll kind of lay in bed and thinking, I hope Scott deals with it. And he'll lay in bed thinking, I hope Rim deals with it. And then eventually one of us will stagger out there and like kick it to death.
It generally sucked. I used my cell phone alarm to wake up.
Yeah, my cell phone, strangely enough, is having some problems suddenly. I think I'm going to buy a new one.
Already?
The backlight just didn't turn off today.
Really?
And it's still on. And
you try messing with the power saving setting in the config menu.
I think for whatever
secret
reason,
config menu.
the little thing that tells when you close the lid is broken or something. And I think I got to get a new cell phone.
Just take it to the place.
Yeah, and they're going to tell me get a new cell phone.
Yeah. All right, whatever. All right, so ready for newses and whatnots?
I think so. I think I should do...
Do you want to go first? And then
I'll go first because I got news, unlike some other lazy people.
Hey, I'm not lazy. I'm trying out.
You're proactive.
I'm proactive, trying to help the listeners.
Yeah, the only time I ever use the word proactive is like I'm at work and there's something that needs to be done and there's something fun to do. Usually fun to do is like set up something new and awesome, and not fun to do is like do the work.
Who you're supposed to do?
So it's like, why aren't you working on the thing you're supposed to be working on? Oh, I'm being proactive. Anyway, so there's a lot of Otakon news. I think the most important one, if you didn't realize it yet, the Artist Alley is done. It's sold out. If you didn't know, you're screwed. Not necessarily, but Otakon historically has a problem where the Artist Alley is so popular, despite being so gigantic. That Artist Alley is bigger than most anime cons.
It's big. Pretty much the amount of room that the Artist Alley and the Art Show take up, that room, you could have an entire comic convention in that room. And, with room to spare.
Not only that, it's more fun than a lot of anime cons.
Yeah,
I would go to Otakon, I think, just for the Artist Alley.
But yet, it's just one room of Otakon.
Otakon.
Yeah.
But historically, when they announce the Artist Alley, it'll pretty much effectively be sold out within, 4 seconds. Maybe 6 seconds if you're lucky. But this year, they did something a little different. Now, we got kind of a head start on this because our obsessive-compulsive friends discovered the ASP that handles registration before it was announced and basically sat there all day hitting F5 until it worked and then told all of us,
Some
hey,
of them might have been
working.
pressing Control-R.
They might have been. But Artist Alley is open, and this year... it doesn't look like they're handling it the way they usually do, because they didn't say, oh, it's already sold out, and they haven't made any announcements to that effect, but the form just works. Now you fill it out, all the Artist Alley stuff, and then you get an email back saying, we got your request. You will get some information soon. Now, I don't know how they're going to handle it this year. I have no idea. I have absolutely no insight into this, and furthermore, no one on the Otakon staff has given me any secret details about this in particular. So... what you're about to hear is entirely speculation.
Speculation.
If I were running the Artist Alley at Otakon, and I would still say, yeah, it's first come, first serve, let it be however. But secretly, I would have, in the previous Otakon, gone around the Artist Alley or sent my lackeys around the Artist Alley, figured out who was good, and made a list of, the people who were awesome. And I also would have made a separate list of the people who were wasting their tables, or in my opinion, or in the opinion of, say, some sort of group of staffers working together, what was not worth being there. Because,
we weren't worth being there, though.
No, we totally weren't. Well, this year will be worth being there, but last year, not so much. But part of that was that we didn't know we had a table until right before the con. But what I would do is I would kind of handpick who gets to be in, because... a lot of people want to be in the Artist Alley at Otakon, and Otakon has the best Artist Alley of any con, but 3 or 4 times the number of people who can fit in that Artist Alley want to be in that Artist Alley every year. And there's almost no fair way to do it. And when there's no fair way to do it, you at least could do a way that, makes the alley as good as possible for the people in it and for the people wanting to peruse it. So I think I would have done something like that. I don't know what Otakon's doing, but... it was the smoothest registration they've ever had, so kudos to them. All right. You got nothing to say?
Is that all you got?
No, God, no. So, beyond that...
I know you got more than that.
Otakon, as there have been a lot of hints that this is going to be the biggest and baddest Otakon ever. I mean, it's their 10th year at the BCC. It's also the 15th Otakon. And there were a lot of rumors going around about, they're going to get some crazy musical act. Oh my God, they're going to get some crazy musical act. Some staffers might have been fanning these flames by periodically emailing us saying, hey, something cool is going to be at Otakon, but I can't tell you what.
Yeah. Not fooling anybody.
But it's finally been announced, or at least part of it. Otakon is going to have as their musical act
At least one of their musical acts.
Now, I'd be fine.
We don't know if there are any more musical acts. I would suggest that there might be. There probably will be.
I would be fine if this was the only musical act. They have announced that they have got Jam Project. Jam Project is responsible for a lot of the music from anime that you know and love. I'm not going to do a whole show or a whole thing here about Jam Project, but check out the Otakon press release, and you'll see the names of a lot of things you might recognize.
I think Jam Project was a great choice because, in the past they've had huge, much more popular bands, at least, sort of like hit, pop, rock, J-rock music.
Like when they got
such.
Laruku, which was like amazing.
Yeah. But basically, those are bands that were just musical acts that happened to have one of their songs be used as an opener or closer to an anime or something.
Well, and they also happen to be really popular in Japan.
Yeah. But this case, it's actually people who specifically make anime music. Very specifically. And all their music is anime music. So it definitely has the wide appeal to both the music fans and the anime fans, both. So you're not going to get those people complaining those J-rockers come to my anime convention. And
granted, those people can shove it.
Those people can indeed shove it. But I think this is a much better choice overall.
See, I don't know necessarily. I think it's a good choice. I wouldn't necessarily say better, but one thing that this group has over other possible musical acts is that everyone in the audience is going to recognize a lot of the things they play. And you know how at anime cons, all you have to do if you're on stage is pretty much say something like, hey guys, Pikachu, and the crowd just loses their shit. Well, if it's these people playing songs that people recognize, the crowd is going to go crazy. Like, I can't even imagine what the crowd's going to be like
There
at
will
this
be,
concert.
all shit will be lost is basically what's going to happen.
Now, I mean, some of the people involved in this, the name that you'll probably know more than any is Masami Okui. Look up what Masami Okui has been responsible for. Now, that is not all of the awesome news for Otakon.
How much awesome Otakon news do you have here?
I'm sure you're all
It's not
familiar.
until August. Can't you save some of this news for when you don't have news next week?
I think there's going to be a steady stream of Otakon news right up until Otakon.
Oh, good God.
Because too many people...
We got 4 months.
Too many people on the inside have been hinting that, yeah, this is going to be the baddest Otakon ever. And I kind of expected, all right, they're going to get a crazy musical act or two. And then they announced that. It's like, all right, they've got a crazy musical act. Okay. But I did not expect that Madhouse Studios, Madhouse, is going to
One of the best animation studios on the planet.
is going to be animating the opener. As in, if Otakon were an anime, they're animating the opener to Otakon.
Yeah, see, that's a genius idea because any anime convention, even super big ones like Otakon, not enough people go to opening ceremonies. Most of the people who go are nubs or people who really have a thing for opening ceremonies or such.
Yeah, I mean,
even we don't go to opening ceremonies, really.
the only con I ever went to opening ceremonies at was I went to Anime Centrals twice, but that was because back then...
I went to opening ceremonies at Penguicon.
We went to
Otakon once.
And we tried to get the crowd to yell something, and it failed.
We tried to start a big chant, and it didn't work because people weren't into it. And I was like, what's the point of coming to opening ceremonies if everyone isn't going to get all excited and rowdy?
I think Otakon's opening ceremonies are going to be all exciting and rowdy
Yeah,
this year.
now this is the most genius idea ever to get people to come to opening ceremonies. Show them an animation that can't be seen anywhere else that was especially made just for those opening ceremonies.
Yep, now they might use
That's
it...
like if you had a video game convention and you made a video game that would only be played at your convention, made by Square Enix to only be played at your convention at one event. People would be lined up around the doors.
Now... I think that what says the most...
As in they'd be standing outside the door of their homes and the line to the convention would be forming.
For the, here's a quote from the thing on Anime News Network, because this is Otakon's Jim Vowels. You might remember Jim Vowels from such things as being at every Otakon ever and being awesome.
And liking Doctor Who more than any man should.
More than any man could.
No.
No, but he's one of those, we talked about in the forum, there's staffers at cons, and then there's super staffers. He's one of those super staffers. But, quote, "This was the most fun I've ever had." Now, that quote is reference to the meeting where they talked about what was going to be in this opener and how it was going to be put together.
Oh, good God.
That was somewhat a selective quote. It's actually the most fun I've ever had at an Otakon meeting.
No, all right.
But I don't know. The most fun I've ever had seems like a more news bite worthy.
Yeah, I can imagine it'd be quite fun.
But yeah, Otakon this year is going to be, I can't even begin to think about how awesome Otakon's going to be.
Watch, it's going to be epic fail like Anime Boston.
Oh,
it could happen.
Actually,
it could happen. Not likely, but it could happen.
Speaking of that, I want to touch on this very, very briefly before Scott gets in. After we talked about the news in Anime Boston, we got a few emails. Two of them were from Anime Boston staffers who wish not to be named, and we also got a lot of feedback from people who are at the con. And like we kind of guessed, people said that other than registration, the rest of Anime Boston was in fact awesome.
As I suggested.
And furthermore, it seems like they are fully aware internally as to exactly what the problem was, and it'll be fixed next year, or bad things will happen.
I am sure that an appropriate number of heads are rolling.
Now, I can't really say more yet because it's way too soon, but
Too soon.
there's a good chance that we are going to be attending Anime Boston next year.
A better chance than ever before. I wouldn't say a good chance.
I've already tentatively agreed.
We'll see. All right. So I couldn't find a worthwhile news, and I'm tired of Anime News Network and whatnot, right? So I'm not doing a news.
But Anime News Nina.
Yeah, whatever. And I've been doing a lot of geek bites on Wednesdays of, like comics I've read or whatnot, all right? But I actually am reading a novel right now, so I can't be reading any comics to do a geek bite of. So I tried to think of something to fill this space with, and I got an idea for a bit. And I want to see if anyone else likes this bit. And if you like this bit, I can make it a monthly bit. And it's sort of impossible for me to make this bit more or less than monthly.
So what are you going to call this bit? I mean,
I have no idea.
We've had trouble naming bits. And we started out we called everything a geek something.
Well, why don't we tell what the bit is before we think of the name?
Well, first, I'll just, our kind of ad hoc naming philosophy was that we kind of, everything is geek something in camel case. But then we started falling away from that because 9 times out of 10, that sounds really dumb.
Yep.
But all right, what's your bit?
All right, so you listeners might know that I purchase comic books monthly, mostly not actual comic books, but big trade paperbacks and whatnot, from a website or a service known as dcbservice.com, discountcomicbookservice.com. And basically what they allow me to do is I can order pretty much anything that Diamond, the evil comic distributors of the direct market, distribute 2 months in advance, and then I get a tremendous discount. We're talking like 40% off. We're talking like $4 comic books for 75 cents. It's way cheap. But the only disadvantage is I have to buy things sight unseen.
There's another disadvantage. I buy things through Scott because he'll say, hey, do you want this? Hey, do you want this? And a lot of times I'll say yes without listening because it's so cheap I don't care. And then Scott gives me a pile of comic books that I remember, oh, wait, I don't want this. Damn it.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with a Serenity comic? It's awful.
Was it awful? Did you read it?
It was expectedly bad. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good.
All right. So there are other websites that provide a similar service. Heroes Corner is one of them. I don't advocate any particular one. I just happen to use this one. And so basically what happens here is I get every month in the mail a giant box of comic books. And I recommend using a service like this to anyone who buys a significant amount of comics on a monthly basis, who doesn't have a lot of money to spend and really, really need that big discount. Or if you don't live anywhere near a comic book store conveniently, because then this way it just shows up at your house. You don't have to go driving to some comic book store an hour away or any bullshit like that, right? But I get this box of comics every month, like at the beginning of the month. It's like clockwork. And sometimes it's a little box, sometimes it's a big box, who knows? But I thought it might be an interesting bit to just sort of briefly go over everything I got in the box this month. And maybe you would call the bit like Scott's Box. I don't know. That's not the best name.
I think you've named it. There's no going back from that.
Oh, there's going back.
There is no turning back.
Yeah, there is.
You've already opened the coffin. It's open. The vampire's out. You can't put him back in.
But the other coffin has a mummy. I'll just open that and they'll fight, and then I can go back to choosing. Maybe a slime will come out.
Everyone knows that vampires and mummies are natural allies. You need a werewolf to fight them, or
good. That's
or a vampire.
A vampire. But anyway, so I'm just gonna briefly go over every comic or book that was in the box this month, and I think this will help people sort of get an idea about what kind of comics I'm buying, what sort of comics they might be interested in buying. I don't know. Tell me.
Oh, that totally reminds me.
Yeah.
I gotta geek by real quick. I read that Green Lantern Scott talked about last.
Oh, it's terrible.
What the fuck was that? That was awful. Why was Aquaman even there? He didn't even do anything. Neither did the Flash. Seriously. Wow. Okay, I'm done.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna do this, and then you're gonna go in the forum and tell me if you think you want me to do this again. All right, so the first thing, I'm just doing this in the order it's listed on the website, because on the website you can see what showed up in the box. It's pretty useful.
Yes. Because in case you don't want to actually look in the box, you can go online.
Well, it's easier for me to look at this webpage than to have a pile of comics in your room on the floor.
True.
Okay, so the first thing that was in the box, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad manga volume 11. There are 19 volumes in total. This is, Beck. It's the rock and roll kind of manga.
I gotta actually watch that anime so we can talk about it.
The anime I liked a lot, but the thing is with the anime is at the end of the anime sort of ends not at the climax of the story, and then they sort of tell the rest of the story during the closing credits of the last episode. So I wanted to get the manga to see, first of all, if there was any difference between that and the TV show, and also to, sort of get the full fleshed out story that was in that epilogue. And right now, around volume 11, it's reaching the point where of that climax. So now I think I'm finally gonna get to read new stuff as opposed to just sort of reading a manga retelling of the anime, even though the anime was a retelling of the manga. Next, Andromeda Stories Volume 3. I think this is the last volume. I'm not sure of that. But Andromeda Stories is by Keiko Takamiya, the Tutara lady. It's a little bit weird if you like Tutara. I can't guarantee you'll like Andromeda Stories, even though I think Rim will love Andromeda Stories.
Of course I will.
It's a vertical manga. You can't go wrong. It's Volume 3. I bought it. Invincible Volume 1 Family Matters Trade. It's an underwear pervert comic from Image Comics, written by the guy who does Walking Dead and the most recent Marvel team-up series, Robert Kirkman. I bought it because people talk about it a lot, and I figured, the first trade is really, really cheap, whatever. Orion 3rd edition trade paperback, Masamune Shiro, Ghost in the Shell, Appleseed, etc.
So
Orion is supposedly the most Shiro-tastic manga.
So what? It's 100 pages of a jiggling butt, and
it's all one volume. This is a new printing by Dark Horse that's in the same publishing format as all the other newer printings of Masamune Shiro's works.
It's 100 pages of a jiggling butt, and overlaid over that is text ranting about some sort of societal, pseudo-psychological future politics.
I'm trying to make this quick, Rim. I got a lot of books here. Logan #1. This is actually a comic book in the classic style. Basically, it's written by Brian K. Vaughan, the Y the Last Man, Ex Machina, Runaways guy. I pretty much buy any comic with his name on it, no matter what. Like, it could be Poop on a Stick by Brian K. Vaughan. You got my money. So it's a Wolverine comic. It's 3 issues. This is the first of 3 issues by him. I bought it. Terry Moore's Echo #1, also a normal comic book. Terry Moore is the guy who wrote Strangers in Paradise. I bought the first pocket book of Strangers in Paradise a while ago. I thought it was fantastic. I bought all the other 5 pocket books, so I have the whole series now, but I haven't read it yet because it's a lot. And this is his new comic, and it was issue 1, so I said, why the hell not? Plus, the cover is really nice. I got Astérie, the Omnibus, volumes 1 and 2.
Le Gaulois.
Yes, volume 1 is the beginning and volume 2 is the end. I don't think I need to own any more Astérie. Right? So that's, because I like to, comics that are like really historically important and have a big significance. I like to own them. So I'm like, I don't own any Astérie. Got to get some of that. Emma Volume 7 for Rim. Got anything to say about Emma Volume 7?
I haven't read it yet because basically I bought I'm missing volume 4 for various reasons.
Just buy it on Amazon.
I just haven't yet because I always forget to buy
You
it.
could have asked me the other day when I needed something to fill out an Amazon order.
Yeah, you know what? What did I just say? I always forget to buy it.
Yeah.
It's every time I go to Amazon and I order like 100 things. Then it's like, is there anything else in the world I need? I guess not. I click submit and it's like, oh crap, fuck it, next time.
All right. Serenity Better Days #1 for Rim. Anything to say about it?
Firefly was good. Firefly comic, not so worth reading.
All right. Marvel Comics Presents #7. This is pretty much the only, one of the only 2 normal comic books that I don't buy and trade. I actually buy every issue because it's an anthology series. Like every month you get one comic book, but there's like 3 or 4 stories in there. And it's just totally random, like Marvel shit. And it's totally off the wall by these small name guys. And I always buy those series. I'm a sucker for them. Avengers The Initiative Volume 1 Basic Training. I bought this because it's written by Dan Slott. Because Dan Slott every comic I've ever read that he has written has been amazing. And I realized somewhat recently that he wrote the Ren and Stimpy comic that I was a fan of when I was a kid.
And he wrote that somewhere.
He wrote the awesome Spider-Man comic from Free Comic Book Day. Dan Slott is awesome. So this is Avengers written by Dan Slott. I said, what the hell? Comic Book Comics #1. I bought this based on a recommendation. I don't know anything about it till I read it, but the cover's cool. Atomic Robo #6, the only other comic I buy not in trade paperback, but actually in individual issues. It is Brian Clevenger writing about a nuclear-powered robot who's sort of like Indiana Jones, but snarky like Spider-Man and awesome. Brian Clevenger's the 8-bit theater guy, plus the art is amazing by the other guy. I forget his name, sorry.
Yeah, what I was about to say was that if you read this and you've read 8-bit theater, all I have to say is that Black Mage comes out a lot.
He sure does.
It's like everything good about Black Mage just kind of oozes out of this robot.
Almost done. MPD Psycho Volume 4, Dark Horse publishing the AG, I think it's AG Otsuka, right? The same guy who does the corpse delivery service. I'm pretty sure it's him. It's MPD Psycho. It's about, this scary detective with multiple personality disorder, but it's not real multiple personality disorder. It's movie fantasy multiple personality disorder. And the serial killing and this horrible, horrible Hannibal style things going on. And it's quality manga. Death Note Profile How to Read 13. Death Note is a 12-volume manga, but in Japan they released a volume 13 that was sort of like the extras. And Viz just finally released this volume 13 in English, and I skimmed through it a little bit, and it is jam-packed with shit. If you're a Death Note fan, you should probably buy this.
Yeah.
Showcase Presents Booster Gold Volume 1. I bought this basically on a dare. It's one of those things where I'm reading it to, pretty much, I can't knock it if I haven't tried it, so I try it, and then I knock it. And we'll see. I don't know if I'll knock it yet, but
I got a prediction.
Yeah.
I think you can call me a prognosticator.
Okay, DMZ Volume 4. It's DMZ. We did a whole show about it before.
Yeah,
this is Volume 4. How could I not buy the next volume?
Are you gonna keep reading it till the end?
I don't think it's gonna end.
Because I kind of lost interest already.
Dungeon Monstrous Volume 1. Remember how we did a show on Dungeon?
This looks like it might be about my second 2 favorite characters.
I think it's about the story of him getting the eyeball. That's what I think it's about.
But it's so easy to get those eyeballs. Just go buy them.
I know, right? Guen Saga Manga Volume 3. Remember that contest we're having where Vertical sent us the 3 volumes? I've talked about this before. Well, they gave us the 3 volumes, but now the 3rd volume that I paid for showed up. Full Metal Alchemist Manga Volume 16. The Full Metal Alchemist manga. I got it at the beginning because it was the Full Metal Alchemist manga, and that was so long ago, right? Like, if the Full Metal Alchemist manga Volume 1 came out now, I probably wouldn't buy it. And I started reading it, and it was good, and it diverged wildly from the show, but it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but it was just kind of normal, and at times I thought about stopping buying it. But the last volume that I read, I think volume 15, came on full force and totally reminded me why I'm buying this. So volume 16, here we go. Phoenix Volume 12. There are only 11 volumes of Osamu Tezuka's Phoenix. This Volume 12, what Viz has done is they have taken some earlier works of Tezuka and some other things and sort of created a 12th volume of Phoenix to sort of round out their publication, their series. So if you're buying the other 11 Phoenixes, you got to buy the 12th Phoenix. And the last thing I bought was Transhuman #1, which is the guy who does nightly news, Brian Hickman. Basically, if you haven't read any Brian Hickman stuff, I think it's Brian Hickman. It might be someone else Hickman.
Great.
I forget. Sorry, but he's basically his comics
bad
is
at
so
this.
yeah. His comics are amazing because they're basically like graphic storytelling via graphic design, and they'll just blow you away. If you everyone should go buy Nightly News. There's a trade paperback of Nightly News. This is just the first issue of Transhuman, so I can sort of test it out to see if I want to buy the trade when it eventually comes out. And that's what I got in Scott's box.
Things of the day. So Utena is like one of the greatest anime ever made. We reviewed
It's pretty great.
We reviewed it before.
Pretty terrific.
Someday we'll do some final thoughts bits, but that's complicated because Utena is one of the more complicated and literate shows out there. But if you need any more glowing recommendation, ask Gomi Dog in the forums because she finally saw the whole show and she will tell you objectively how good it is. I might be a little biased. I'm kind of an Utena fanboy. But
Kind of.
it's like the best show ever made, with the exception of Irresponsible Captain Tyler, both of which made me cry.
Right.
Anyway, so Teen Girl Squad plus Utena equals hilarity. I'm going to leave it at that. The only other thing I'll say is that if you have not seen all of Utena, or at least if you've not seen any of Utena, this is still kind of funny. The more Utena you've seen, the funnier this is.
And the less spoilerific.
It's not spoilerific. It's one of those like Ava, where like you see things in the opener, or you see things and they might be a spoiler, but you have no context, so they're not a spoiler.
That's sort of true.
Like if you see a scene of a giant white ray making people turn to goop, that doesn't really spoil Ava because you have no idea what the hell that's all about.
That's true. It's true. But yeah, if you are crazy with the spoilers, you do want to avoid it, though.
Yes.
And also, if you really need to understand both Teen Girl Squad and Utena to really get the fullness of this mashup. Otherwise, you're not getting really out of it what you could get out of it.
I think there are there are three levels of having seen Utena in terms of getting all the jokes here. And if you hit the third level, you pretty much saw the rest of the show.
It's a very deep mashup, and that's why it's high quality and thing of the day.
Yeah.
All right, check this out. There's a guy named Evan Shaner. He's got he's an artist dude. He makes comics and things. He's pretty good with the arts. He's got a website and a, DeviantArt and all that stuff, just like all the other arts peoples. And in his little blog here, he made a little post on St. Patrick's Day that I didn't discover until recently. And in it, he has a little comic with him and his friends on St. Patrick's Day, a little one-panel comic, kind of funny. And he also has a mashup he did, a little mashup with The Watchmen. Little mashup between The Watchmen and Peanuts.
That is some hardcore action
It is a hardcore, high quality mashup. You got your Linus comedian, your Doc Manhattan Brown, your
That sounds like a porn name.
your Schroeder Ozymandias,
Dr. Manhattan Brown.
your Rorschach Snoopy, your what's the guy who's the dirty guy?
Pigpen.
Pigpen Owly guy.
He's not so much dirty as just frumpy and middle-aged.
I know, but they use Big Ben for the Owly guy. I forget the Owly guy's name. And what's the girl's name?
I don't even remember. Which girl? There's more girls in Peanuts than one.
The one who's going with Dr. Manhattan.
Because there's Peppermint Patty.
No, I know it's Lucy, but who the Watchman name?
I already forgot her name.
Yeah, her. Lucy's the girl. Sorry.
Anyway, we're going to talk about
good.
a show
Look at
tonight that we haven't seen in a long time, but that's fine because in fact, I actually only saw like the first 7 episodes. I never watched the rest.
That's fine because the show is really shallow and you don't need to really watch it recently to have a bunch to say about it. Plus, a lot of the things you have to say about the show are meta.
We're going to talk a lot about the history of anime fandom in the US because Gatekeepers was a forgettable, mediocre, well-produced, but just otherwise forgettable show.
Yeah, Gatekeepers was a show that was on TV when Japanese school kids got home from school. It was that kind of show. Like, come home from school and watch high school kids fight big alien robots, pow, zap, that sort of show. And we watched it at the RIT Anime Club in our freshman year, so in the year 2000 when it came out. And it was very shallow. It wasn't a deep show. It wasn't a high quality show. But at the time, Gonzo, it was better animation than we had seen in many other things, at least in terms of the digital technologies used by Gonzo, who had been making like video game cutscenes until then. And it was one of the first digital fan subs. And it was also a show that just the way it's structured, if you have a room full of excited anime fans, they can yell and cheer and go, woo!
It's one of those shows that sets you up with things that are designed to make someone yell.
Yep. Basically, here's how the show goes, right? High school kids, alien invaders. The alien invaders are all cool and stylish. Like, they all have black hats, but one of them always has a red hat, and he's the weak point. Then they all form together, right, into like a giant blob or something, right? And the cool part of each episode is seeing what the bad guys form into. Like in one episode, they form into like a piece of a superhighway. So it's like these two pieces of street are stomping around the town. In I think the first episode, they're just like a giant black ball. They have all these different, formations, and it's always sort of funny to see how the bad guys decide to attack this time. And the rest of it is just these high school kids are, they join or are forced to join the secret organization Aegis. And
Yokai and Jesu.
And then there's these really cool kind of stylish scenes where they're like sent out into action, and it's sort of got like a bit of a 50s styling to it, like drive an old motorcycle to the scene.
Well, remember, the show was
fly
set
a retro rocket to the scene
in like the late 60s in Japan.
Yeah, that's one thing you might not realize watching the show. I mean, you have to kind of pay attention to that. It's set in an older time period.
But here's the deal. We'll talk about Gatekeepers itself first, because I would have had a lot more to say about this show if we were doing Geeknights, I don't know, like April something
2000?
in the year 2000 when I saw it, because the show was really crazily popular in America, and it was like a big deal, and everyone watched it, everyone knew about it, and it was, oh my god. And if the same show or a similar show had come out today, it would have been completely ignored.
Yep.
And the show is not deep at all.
It's pretty much just fight the bad guys and incredibly shallow high school character development.
I mean, it follows Shun, the main character, who happens to have the most badass gate in the world. Gate, by the way, is just the powers they have. And
yeah, it's like, one girl is like, gate open, and she shoots an arrow with a magic gate. And another girl, like, goes gate open, and she plays the piano, and it makes things happen.
I think her superpower was that she was incredibly stupid.
Yep. And the main guy, of course, goes gate open, and he has a sword. Duh. Sword.
I'm not even going to bother talking about the plot, really, because the show was just eye candy. And the things to remember about the show are, one, the way gatekeepers and like military people within this organization saluted each other. You could not walk around RIT without someone doing that to you every day for like a month after everyone
It wasn't
saw
that bad. But at Anime Club, people would be going like, Aiko Aegis all the time.
It was, and they'd make the thing.
I had a Gatekeepers ID card in my wallet that we got for free somehow.
A lot of us had them.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, this show was really popular at RIT, and the showing of it in the Anime Club was crazy, yelling and screaming, because what's his name? The guy who's like the head officer of the Gatekeepers?
Commander of Aegis, every time he would send them out on mission, he would do this Phoenix Wright style pointing kind of thing, like, go!
You know what?
Like Aegis attack or something. I forget exactly what he said, but
call it Phoenix Wright style does it a disservice. If you think Phoenix Wright has a powerful point, Phoenix Wright has got nothing.
Phoenix Wright is like a beginning pupil of the Gatekeepers commander.
This guy, like, whenever he was about to do it, you could tell that, like, the people animating it and everything were excited. Because it would, like, zoom in and his hand would come up.
His whole body would rotate. His hand would, like, come out from behind his head.
It would fly around in a circle with motion blur. It would come forward with action lines so hard the screen would shake.
Yeah.
It was, that alone made the show worth watching.
Pretty much. And also, like, the bus that turns into, like, a heavily armored vehicle.
I think the best thing was that the secret base of Aegis was just in the high school, and it was secret. I don't think you can see me making quotation marks with my
It
fingers.
was a Clark Kent kind of secret.
Not even that. Everyone, and I mean pretty much everyone on the planet except the bad guys, knew that was the Aegis headquarters. They'd be like, oh, the high school.
Yeah,
Wink,
you'd be sitting
wink,
in high
wink.
school in class. Suddenly, one kid that always leaves all the time walks out of the room.
Yeah, like the fire alarm goes off, and then
a rocket flies out of the roof.
like basically like a smoke would appear everywhere. Like, oh, there's a fire, and then like the bus full of guns, well, not guns, but gatekeeper craft flies away. Oh man.
Basically, it's just a silly after-school show with animation that was impressive, digital animation that was impressive at the time. It's really shallow. It's good if you want to have a fun time with a bunch of, anime club type people. But it's not worth watching all the episodes unless you really don't have a lot better to do. I mean, it's okay, but it's not great or anything. It's a solid low B, high C kind of show. It's just fun and shallow.
Yep. I mean, the only other thing I want to bring up before we stop talking about the anime itself was Bancho. Imagine
he was the comic relief kind of character.
This is a show where everyone has a gate, like a power. They're all little superheroes, but Bancho was not a superhero. He was just some guy who was really intense.
Yeah,
and that was his superpower.
He's basically like, "Let me join the team. I'm on the team, whether you like it or not." He's like, yes, I have a power. You just haven't seen it yet. Blah.
Yeah, guts, and that's all he had.
Yeah, his power was guts, and he was just a tall, bigger than the average high school student who was really comic relief.
So why the hell are we talking about this show then? I mean, there are better shows coming out now that we're not watching or reviewing, so why this?
Well, because back in the day, as I said before, it was one of the first digital fan subs. And even if it wasn't the first digital fan sub, right? This show, basically, there was a website, Anime-Factory. I wonder if that website is still there.
Well, while you look it up, I mean, the first digital fan sub that really got widely circulated, as far as I was aware, was the Escaflowne movie. And people made a big deal about that. And like, oh my God, it's a fan sub.
Yeah, because until then, all fan subs were sort of VHS. And a lot of people didn't even know what a fan sub... I didn't know what a fan sub was until I got to RIT. So the idea of a digital fan sub really hadn't gotten around yet. And it wasn't the first one, because we did have the Escaflowne one before we had the Gatekeepers one, but the Gatekeepers one was on a website that basically said, come here and download Gatekeepers episode 1 with subtitles and watch it on your computer, and we'll have episode 2 soon. And then they started doing Boys B was the next show they tried to do. And this sort of, people saw that, and it was sort of, they realized it clicked. Like, oh, a digital fan sub. I get it. Oh, shit. And just because it happened to be the show that sort of started that realization process, it gained a lot of popularity that was very undeserved. But
actually, I think the Escaflowne movie was released a little bit after.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
So maybe it might have been the first digital fan sub. I'm just not committing to that because I'm not sure.
But this show kind of... This marks a turning point in anime fandom in the United States. Like, anime fandom after this show was completely different in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the anime club, when this started happening, they had to debate at the anime club, should we show this? And it was like they had shown tape fan subs before, but it's like, can we show this? Should we show it? Because in those days, the DivX and stuff wasn't the same quality it is now. I mean, well, VHS is terrible quality, but, there were all sorts of issues, like, should we show it? And, it was a big discussion, and it was a major turning point, It was pretty much like... It was like, they were on one course, then this happened, and then that's when they started to turn towards the other course.
I mean, I really got to stress how much things changed, because before this, for the majority of people who liked anime at RIT, just because that's an example, if you wanted to see anime that wasn't already released in the US on VHS or DVD, and there wasn't that much that was easy to get, especially for poor college kids, you pretty much had to go to anime clubs, and at the anime club, the e-board would sit and debate and decide, what are we going to show these people? They're a captive audience because this is the only place they can get this stuff easily.
And then they could check stuff out of the library too.
Yes, but at the same time, the club was like, there was so much in the library because, God, we had so many tapes even before digital fan subs. It was crazy.
Yep.
That there was like, people needed direction. So pretty much you'd have 200, 300 people come to watch anime, partly because they'd get to see stuff that they'd never heard of, had really no easy way of finding out about. And the goal of the club was to show as many different kinds of anime as possible to get people into anime.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Gatekeepers, people could go find out about anime on their own and then get it on their own.
Yep.
And there was a lot of talk about, well, how are we going to get people to keep coming to the anime club? Of course, people kept coming, and that's probably a topic for a separate show as to how some anime clubs survived this and many did not.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that plenty before, but you know, the important point is that Gatekeepers sort of got the ball rolling, ironically enough, because the bad guys turned into a giant ball in the first episode.
It was also, a lot of people called it the Linux anime because the redhead guy was always the bad guy.
Oh, it's so lame.
But everyone made that joke.
I never heard anyone make that joke.
People made that joke all the time. It's RIT. God.
Oh, let me add in a note here. Gatekeepers has a manga, right? And it was a good call by Tokyo Pop to bring over the Gatekeepers manga because it would be able to sell to the people who had seen the Gatekeepers anime fan subbed based on the title alone. And in fact, I bought volume 1 way back in the day at full price, even though now this is super, super, super discount bin fodder. And rightfully so, because it is a terrible manga. If you think the anime is shallow and nothing, the manga is 10 times more shallow and nothing. It's basically like you open it up and it's just really, it's like meant for like 5-year-olds, this manga. It's like, attack the bad guy, gate open, boom, the end. That's pretty much it. You don't need to read the manga, nor should
don't
you.
forget my favorite 2 words.
But if you have little kids,
together,
they might enjoy it, actually.
Collateral damage.
Yeah.
But there's another thing about like this show. The revolution of anime fandom was also that up until this point, and up until digital fan subs, people kind of took whatever they could get, and pretty much any show that people got their hands on, they would watch. I mean, God, we watched Legend of Lenmir, and we watched a lot of bad anime.
Yeah, up until that point in my life, you know, any anime that was on, whatever Sci-Fi Channel was showing, I was there. Whatever anime club was showing, I think every anime that the anime club showed, was like, yes, awesome, yes, awesome.
And everyone would show up. The people who only like giant robot stuff, they came to see the fancy la-la-esque shows because it's anime.
It's anime. But this, as you know, within a few months, just months, because it was still freshman year, right? After, this sort of this came out, I was on, Hotline, and there was plenty
Scott actually ran a very popular Hotline server at RIT for a while.
Quiet. And, we were all sharing all these digital fan subs. I had all of Trigun and, like, Real Media Files, and it was all this stuff going on. And
like, there was this sudden explosion, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people no longer had interest in, 1, bad anime, but 2, anime that they, on the surface, didn't think they'd like. Like, Fancy Lala is an example. Ignore when Fancy Lala came out or whatever, but before the fan sub revolution in Gatekeepers, if we showed Fancy Lala, everyone would come because, all right, anime. The B-board picked it. It must be good enough to see, and I want to see some anime. After that, Fancy Lala and people who like Magical Girls would come, and everyone else would say, screw it, I'll stay home and continue watching, like, Fist Battler Baki, and I'll wait for the next Fist Battler Baki-like show before I go back to the anime clubs.
Yep. The one more thing Gatekeepers actually did, as far as I'm concerned, is it was sort of, it wasn't the first thing that Gonzo ever did, but it was one of the first TV shows ever animated by Gonzo, which is now a pretty big and important studio. They got their start doing, video game cutscenes, and then Gatekeepers one of their first TV shows. And Gatekeepers really, the digital animation techniques used in that are pretty much used in everything today. And I don't think they invented those techniques, but that was like one of the first places I ever saw animation that was that shiny. Did you see animation that shiny before then?
Gatekeepers
I
stood
mean,
out.
I saw better animation. Like Akira is much better animation than Gatekeepers, but it wasn't as shiny. You see, shiny does not equal better.
This is kind of like how Tenchi Muyo, when American fans saw it, there was a big hubbub because it looked so shiny compared to other anime, and it stood out as being like, oh my god, this was kind of similar, that it looked really good, and that drew a lot of people to it. And Gatekeepers was like so shiny and so eye candy that a lot of people who had never seen this sort of thing before fell hand over foot for it because it just looked so amazing.
Yep.
And part of that too was that they just hadn't seen a lot of anime, and this was kind of a new thing for them.
And I think that because it was one of the first, if not the first show to be digitally fan subbed, you know, and I knew that was when I knew who Gonzo was. Like, think about that. Someone who had never really paid attention to who made anime. I didn't really pay attention to directors other than Miyazaki until like a couple years ago. Right? Like when I started listening, when podcasting started coming into being, you know, an Anime Old Order told me, oh, you should pay attention. I said, oh shit, you're right. This is the year 2000, but I knew that this was made by Studio Gonzo because I don't know how that knowledge like stuck with me, but it did. And there was just something about that. I don't know what it was.
Now,
so I give Gatekeepers a lot of credit for, basically, I think that it had a significant role in bringing Studio Gonzo to from being some nobodies who made video game cutscenes to the high-profile studio they are today.
well, there was also a lot of some fun side stories that, you know, we talked about, oh, this was a new issue, much like when the UN has to deal with like a new kind of weapon or a new kind of warfare. The anime clubs of the world had to deal with a new kind of anime distribution medium, and the most interesting debate that happened was actually after the fact, because there was a sequel to Gatekeepers called Gatekeepers 21. I watched one episode and decided it was garbage. I don't know.
I watched one episode and I didn't decide it was garbage. It seemed like it was seemed like they were trying to ham-fist a show like Noir into the Gatekeepers universe in the distant future, and it wasn't working so well. But I don't think it was garbage, but I only watched one episode.
It really didn't grab me at all.
No, I didn't watch any more of it, that's for sure.
But there was a crazy controversy about this at Gatekeepers 21 because anime clubs, we had a lot of policies about what to show, and fan subs were usually deemed okay because most fan subs weren't released. There were very few fan subs available that were ever released commercially, or are there any plans to release commercially?
Yep, the issue of the VHS fan sub, was a solved problem long before we ever got to the anime club.
Like, we had all these policies to deal with it. But then with these digital fan subs, so Gatekeepers 21, someone had laboriously fan subbed it. And this person, they wanted it to be shown at the RIT Anime Club. Like, look what I did. Let's let everyone see this. But in between when the fan subbing was completed and when it was to be shown, it was announced that it was going to be released commercially.
Yep, because it's like, wow, because I didn't, up until then, there weren't, the commercial releases of anime were few and far between. We're talking streamlined VHSs and such. But I mean, we're talking like Trigun came out on DVD. Cowboy Bebop was out on DVD. That was the beginning of professionally released anime in the U.S. Being on DVD and being high quality and awesome. And there was an announced licensing of Gatekeepers, Gatekeepers 21. I forget.
It was Gatekeepers 21 is the specific one, and
right.
We debated. We had this crazy e-board meeting for hours where we debated whether or not we should show it. And then if we show it, what's the rationale? If we don't show it, what's the rationale? What is our policy going forward? We had to worry about this because it was a new thing and we didn't know what to do. And we eventually came upon the kind of golden rule of anime clubs that still holds true to a large degree today, which was that we decided that as long as the show had not been given a street date, as in there was no, we have the license, it is going to be released as of this day, we wouldn't wait until it was released because that was kind of crap, but we would wait until they said it was going to be released, and they said, it's going to be this day or this month.
Yeah, because someone could buy the license to something and then never release it. And there was a sort of feeling that, well, if they're going to do that, then, there's a chance that they won't ever release it, which is actually something that did happen way back in those days. Not like now where they license something and it almost always gets released, except, even more recently, the trend is reversed. So, if there was unless they said the DVD will be available volume 1 on this date, then that meant there was a chance that they were just going to hold on to the license and never release it. So he said, in that case, it's still okay for us to show a fan sub because this could be like, lost art that no one will ever be able to see because someone's hoarding the license.
Yep. Now, pursuant to that was the general policy that we'd never really showed whole shows, and we kind of pointedly avoided. We never actually addressed the issue, but we never showed a marathon of a fan sub.
Nope.
We would show the first 4 episodes because if nothing else, all that did is generate more interest in the actual commercial release.
But whenever we did a marathon of an entire show, it would always be the real DVDs.
Now, to go over this very briefly, back then, industry relations in terms of fan clubs were kind of different from they were today. And we'd always, we got like legal permission to show things and all this sort of, and we had the implicit and tacit a kind of approval of our policies by the anime quote unquote industry at the time. There was kind of they
won't say that though.
No, but we had a working relationship with many industry people, and the policy then was an unspoken, as long as you follow the rules you said you're following, we will never bother you about the way you show fan subs.
Yeah, this is a long time ago though, so it's not the same today.
No, it's totally different now. Now the other issue was, all right, we had a gigantic anime library. Do we allow digital fan subs in the library, and if so, in what capacity? And that argument lasted for months.
Yeah, I think eventually, they took some digital fan subs and transferred them to VHS and put them in the library, but that died out, and eventually...
Actually, it became moot. Before we came up with a policy on how to deal with it, everyone just downloaded their own fan subs, and the only purpose of the library then was to get legitimate releases.
Yep,
to get old VHS releases of RuPawn.
Yep, they eventually just started, buying DVDs and replacing all the fan sub VHSs that had DVD replacements.
Of course, right about then was when Scott Johnson was in the process of being the best goddamn librarian ever in terms of getting enough money from RIT to buy the sick amount of DVDs that we had.
Man, the library was pretty big when I joined the anime club. Scott, it was in these cabinets. They had these 8 cabinets, and the club library filled the cabinets. But that was it. Scott Johnson added so many tapes to the library that not only did he fill those cabinets all the way, he completely covered 3 or 4 long tables.
Yes, our office was basically just full of DVD and VHS tapes.
It was quite a thing to see. And then
Scott Johnson was the Emperor Justinian of the RIT Anime Club library.
Something along those lines, yes.
I remember, and then the worst thing is, our method of dealing with inventory was basically this little notebook.
Yep.
And me and him sat there for 2 days straight, one weekend, catalogizing. I'm going to say catalogizing.
Taking inventory of?
Not just that, but making the whole new system of taking inventory and relabeling everything. And the shit I got for the next 3 years because my G's looked too much like O's and my handwriting was bad. Screw you, you guys didn't help me at all.
And Gatekeepers was an instigator of the whole thing.
I don't know what else we really have to say. I mean, there's a lot of intimate little details about fan subs and Gatekeepers and things that you probably don't care about. I don't think I want to get into the specifics of the arguments that we had in the club or just the reactions and all those crazy things. I think you get the overview of what was going on at that time.
Yep. All right. All I got to say now is that I have received what appears to be one more valid entry into the Guen Saga manga contest.
Oh, snap.
I am going to judge the valid entries this week, and I will announce a winner next Wednesday on the show. But if you send in a valid entry between today and next Wednesday, I will enter it into the judging. So right now you got a 1 out of 3. I think there's 3 entries and 2 of them are valid so far. So
you'll win the Guen Saga manga.
Your chances are good of winning if you send in a valid entry. Listen to any Geeknights that was a recent Wednesday show for the rules. It's a real essay contest. And tell me if you want to hear more of the Scott's box bit.
And also, we were not originally intending on attending the New York Comic Con. We just had a lot of other things going on, like Gaming for Hope, which is the same
How much
weekend.
are you going to give away now?
All I'm going to say is that we are now attending the New York Comic Con, and we're going to be press, for one, But much more importantly,
We're doing some event.
we're going to be involved in something that may or may not involve guests of honor at the convention and may or may not be completely awesome.
Off the hook, if you will.
This is one of those. It's rare where I would say, are we getting in over our heads now? But we might be.
Yeah, there's gonna be. We went from not caring about the New York Comic Con, which is really soon, by the way, like this month, to now maybe something's gonna go down there. Probably.
So I think next week I will be able to divulge the details. But suffice to say, holy crap. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.